last-minute shake-up at 5:30 a.m., laundry situation not good. And when your focus is on helping your clients, it's easy to forget about yourself. But NASM knows trainers.
Morning, Ryan. Is okay.
And staying in front of the day isn't always as simple
Ryan.
as 1, 2, 3. So when the unexpected has you pressing pause,
What's the latest on creatine?
I'm going to get back to you on that.
let NASM1 help you press play. Visit NASM.org to sign up for a membership today.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's edition of the Master Instructor Roundtable. I'm Marty Miller, here with co-host, fellow Master Instructor, and of course, dear friend, Miss Wendy Batts. Wendy, how's everything?
Everything is great. How are you?
Living the dream. I'm glad that you're here, and we've got, I think, an interesting topic because it really comes from all of our amazing NASM professionals that listen to us each week and use the NASM Facebook page. So, this is going to be all about them.
Yes. So we often go, Marty and I, we hunt down some of the questions that we find very interesting or ones that him and I get very often. And we try to put these into some of the podcasts to show you that we do go onto that page. We do try to help provide as much information as we can. So this is our 10th time doing this. If you guys are on and you're able to, we are live. So if you have additional questions that you would like to ask Marty and I, please feel free to put them in the chat and we will do our best to get to them before the end of our episode today.
Without a doubt. So, right off the bat, Wendy, you mentioned it, but we're just going to ask you, did you guys know that we have a dedicated NASM certified personal trainers private page? What that means is you just have to request to be able to go into that page. We validate your credentials and then you're in. There's some rules, right? It's a place for growth and communication. We can have fun, educated conversations, but we're going to keep it to where it's high level educational interactions, but it's a great place to network. So the goal of this page is to bring, what is it, 15,000 now, Wendy, something like that?
I haven't looked at it the last time I checked, but I mean, it's up there for sure.
Yeah. So it's an opportunity to engage with other professionals that have different experiences, similar experiences, different credentials. And as Wendy and I say, that's where we go in to see what you guys want to talk about. So great conversations go on in there. And that's really the purpose of the page, just to give you guys a place to go in, interact with your peers and see if you can continue to add and or learn from your fellow professionals.
Yes. Well, let's go ahead and get right into the first question. Marty, I'll read it. And then if you want to take the first stab, we can do that or vice versa. Sure. But it says, I am a brand new personal trainer and just started working part-time at my local chain, leading group sessions. The sessions are scripted and changed every 6 weeks. I do have latitude for my warm-up and cool-downs and have experimented with several exercises to do so. I think that what I've cobbled together might be effective, but as I mentioned, I am new, so who knows? I'm wondering if anyone could suggest a 5 to 8 minute warm-up. And let's go ahead and see, Marty, what would you do? Because she wants to make sure that it's somewhat systematic and makes sense in advance. So.
Yeah. So when you're working in a facility, a gym chain, or a scripted fitness business, of course, there is unique challenges that are there, but that doesn't mean you can't kind of maneuver around it like you're asking. So I love this question. So here's the thing. We are all about assessments. We're all about individualized. But with that, there are some things that we know to be true. If Wendy and I went back from the thousands of assessments we've done, and or if we did another 100 assessments, we can safely say that a high propensity of that population will have tight calf. They'll have tight hip flexors. They'll have tight adductors. They'll have tight lats, tight pec, tight sternocleidomastoids. There is a combination of, similar movement patterns. Now, not everyone's going to have the exact level of it, and not everyone's going to fall into all of those, but you will do very well with a progressive warm-up. If you can include some soft tissue work, foam rolling, maybe you can, maybe you can't. Maybe there's some massage guns that are in the area that allow people to do that even before the class starts. highly recommend that. But if I had to go through what I would say a targeted warm up, and there's a lot of ways you can sequence these. I'm not saying this is the only way. You can start with some hip flexor activity, right? Some static stretches, then go into bridges, and then you could go into prisoner squats, following that flexibility continuum of static, active, dynamic. You could come up with a sequence for the calf complex, come up with a sequence for the adductor complex, for the upper extremity, and then get into some core activation, right? So planks, then maybe one day you do side planks, then one day maybe you do, a high plank with shoulder tap to change it up. But you're targeting the very overactive tissue, you're activating its functional antagonist, you're getting the core stabilized, and then you do something maybe in the dynamic stretch phase to get their heart rate up, whether it's prisoner squats, world's greatest stretch, all kinds of different stuff. And now you've prepped them as best as you can for that workout.
And Marty, I'm going to second all of that. And that's when Marty and I say we've done this for a long time, guys, this is what we do with professional athletes. I use basketball players, for example, because you don't see what's behind the scenes. You only see them come out and start warming up, doing some free throws, doing different shots, doing some different maneuvers or whatever, which is more on the dynamic side. But behind the scenes, they are going through now, granted, they have very individualized programs because we've done assessments that's personalized to them, but they're getting some manual therapy. They're maybe getting somebody stretching them, or they're doing some static stretches on their own. Then they do go into some active stretching, and then they go out and begin truly their warm up that's more dynamic to get them ready for the game. So if you can incorporate that, like Marty said, it is one of those things that's only going to benefit. And if you know something is commonly overactive, and look at the group, if you are doing group sessions, when they walk in, look how many people's feet turn out. If you say, okay, everyone stand up, and you just glance and you see that their feet are slightly externally rotated, then that's an indication that their calves are tight. So you can do kind of a glance at the room, figure out what they need to do. It doesn't have to be all static, because people don't necessarily want to go in and just do a static type stretch all the time. But if you do that continuum, it is going to be very beneficial. And then they're going to have better results with the actual sessions that you're leading, especially if, they're changing them up every 6 weeks. And
then at the end of your class, encourage a cool down. Whether, again, if you leave foam rollers, leave massage guns, teach them 1 or 2 stretches. I know people want to work out right to the last minute, but try also to put some cool down in there, which is that recovery where you're re-establishing ideal posturing.
And it's important to say on the recovery side, as Marty just said, that's when the static stretches need to occur. You'll notice that even throughout the entire OPT model, that every phase, it doesn't matter if you're in power or strength or stabilization, you always finish with static stretching. And that's for exactly what Marty said. We're trying to restore the proper length back into the muscles that were used. And if you're doing a total body type session, or you're doing even HIIT or anything that's really where they're jumping around and doing a lot of movement, that is going to be very critical for those muscles to have better alignment. So when they come in to see you next time, they're not even more of a mess.
Yeah, love it. So thanks for that question. So Wendy, I'll give you this question. I'll tee it up here for you. So we see our friends over at .fit, the logo here. So what is a good meal plan creator to use for clients? I know of Eat This Much, but I'm not sure why I can't figure out how to use it.
You know what? This one's always a hard one for me because, I personally do not do meal plans for my clients. I refer out, and that's when I think it's really important to have a referral system that I can give to a registered dietitian that can ask more specific questions, especially if someone's on different types of medications and maybe I don't understand how that reacts to someone's, weight fluctuations, or if they're holding on to more water because of some of the stuff that they're taking, or maybe they are deficient in something and they need food or some type of supplement to help kind of put their levels back to normal. And so I'm a big fan of .fit. Again, I do utilize Kat Bearfield, Nick Corso. Those are our two people that when I have questions on supplements and or food, I go to those two. If you don't know someone in your area, then if you do go to .fit, they have a place where you can log in, people can log their food, and then they can actually say, okay, this is how many calories you should be taking in. And they give you some ideas of things where you can sit down with your clients, you can plug and play different things. And you know that at least it's with a system that is evidence-based, there's research done. If there's supplement recommendations, then it's something that the computer itself or the system itself is spitting out, and not something that you personally think this may be great for all. So, I mean, you've got to find what works for you. But I personally, I go to .fit.
Yeah, no doubt. I don't have much to add to this. I will give a shameless plug for potential upcoming podcasts. We might be talking about some red flags, and we talk about getting a referral network, because we really need to know our scope of practice, and we want to give the best services to our client. And, I have the CNC through NASM. So again, I know what that allows me to do, but I always rely on my colleagues that are skilled in areas I'm not. So .fit is awesome at what it does. And then you have, like I said, you may want find a friend that has those proper initials after their last name, so you can refer back and forth.
All right, question number 3. Hey, y'all, I've been getting quite a few clients recently that have hip and spine injuries. For the most part, they struggle quite a bit with the overhead squat assessment, so I don't have them do the single leg squat. I'm wondering if you guys have any other assessments that you do on that initial assessment to look at more things to help figure out more specific basic things to program for them.
Did you write this question, Wendy, with it starting with "Hey, y'all"?
Hey, well, it says "Hey, all." If it was me,
the way
hey,
you said it, okay.
Yeah, I know. I had to. You noticed that I said "Hey," and then I had to think "all" instead of "y'all." But yeah.
But I still heard it because I'm so used to it. So I was paying attention, but I didn't read it through like the way. But I was
so what are you saying, Marty?
I was awfully familiar with that Tennessee accent. But yes, the answer is yes. So for years, Wendy and I taught. We had the overhead squat, we had the single leg squat. We said, hey, if you need to hold on to something like that, or if the overhead squat, it's going to be worse on a single leg squat. But NASM continuing to build out the education on the last version of the CES added the split stance. So you'll see, if you're watching us today, you'll see that there's an image of what looks like a stationary lunge. That's a split stance. So that way you're still seeing what the lead leg would do with an almost full weight bearing, not full, but if they can't control that, they're not going to control it without the stance leg giving them some balance. So that is your in-between that NASM came up with. So I love that. The majority of people can do a split stance squat. Now, I still am okay with somebody holding on for balance here, because I'm not looking for them to do this as an exercise. I'm looking at when they can stabilize, what does their knee do in this position? Because this is how they're going to move in real life a lot. So I'm still okay with them even having a balance point if they need it, if it's safe. But that is your transition between the squat and single leg squat.
Yeah. And I'm also going to throw in there too. Again, I think that's super important, especially when we're looking at lower body. But when you're saying that there's hip and spine injuries, I would ask the questions like how severe, and when you say injuries, was it something that occurred due to a car wreck? Was it something they were born with, or was it they were playing a sport and they got injured? Because I mean, there's a lot of things when you say injuries of what that could mean, because if they're struggling doing the overhead squat, and as Marty said, I'm a big fan of that single or the split squat, but you can also find out a lot of information by just having them walk in front of you. So if they are struggling just to do anything, then just watch their gait, see what's happening. If they have this weird hips, like when they're swinging their leg in the forward, to move it forward, does it kind of go out to the side, or does it go forward like it's supposed to, like within one fluid motion? So, do you notice that it's kind of going more into circumduction? And I also look at how their feet are their feet turned out when they're pushing off? Do they really push off the side of their big toe versus push through their MTP joint? There's a lot of things that you can see. Plus, you can also see too, how are their knees? Like, are they kind of knock knees? Do they internally rotate? There's a lot of things that are happening where I think we don't give just the walking pattern as much credit as we should, because that can tell you a ton. It's still dynamic movement. So it's a transitional movement that's allowing us to see how their body moves in space. So if you do postural static assessments, meaning how are they standing talking to you, then you can then add the movement to it. So if they can walk, then you can still gather a lot of information, but think of what you're looking for in the overhead squat and then try to look for those same parameters. Look at their knee in relation to their toe, look at their knee in relation to their hip. What is their arms and shoulders and neck and head and everything doing? And so if you're struggling with any of that, they can't do something single leg. If they still feel unstable or it's painful, definitely don't do it. But just kind of think of what you can do in a creative side to find that information out.
Yeah, great advice, Wendy. All right, question 4, Wendy. I'll tee this one up again for you here. So looking for ideas and exercises for a tennis player with both tennis elbow and golfer's elbow, wanting to help him with elbow tendonitis and improve his game.
Okay, so when you're thinking about some of this, we've got to find out, are we talking about which one do you, it's hard because when you're thinking about tennis elbow and you're thinking about golfer's elbow, we're talking about the medial epicondylitis when we're talking more about golfer's elbow, and then the lateral when we're talking more about tennis. And so there are specific muscles that obviously are overactive. And if they're feeling it in both, then there's probably something going on with what we call the natural carrying angle. And what I mean by that is if someone is standing and you have them drop their hands, like, so their palms are facing outward and they just put their hands to their side, what angle do they fall? And most people will have slightly they'll slightly turn out. Like my natural carrying angle, like if I were to curl up, would be going in this direction. So it's not where you see all of my knuckles. You kind of see the last 3. And so what irritates it? Are they playing a sport? Are they playing tennis and they're playing golf? Is it when they go to pick up like a coffee mug and they're picking it up from the top? Is that when they really feel one side more than the other? Or are they doing it when they're exercising? And if it is when they're exercising, do you have them on a fixed piece of equipment that's putting that natural joint, their carrying angle at like that particular hinge? Are you putting stress to that hinge? So you've got to kind of figure out too and get more to the bottom of it, because it's really hard to say, well, you're going to do this, this, and this, because if so, you're stretching every one of the muscles in the forearm and then you're strengthening every muscle in the forearm. So you have to kind of think of which one's first, and you want to really focus on that. So like I said, if it's more on golfer's elbow, so on the inside, we're going to really focus on down regulating the flexors, the muscles that pronate the forearms. Those are the muscles that are going to be shortened or overactive. That's putting stress on the medial side. And then of course it's the opposite when we're looking at tennis elbow, because it's more on the outside. So Marty has, when he put this together, he was kind enough to actually add 2 links, one to the golfer's elbow and one to the tennis elbow Master Instructor Roundtables that we did a while back, where we go through specific muscles that you're going to want to foam roll. Or, well, you don't really want to foam roll these, but usually you'll use like some sort of percussion device on those to down regulate, and then exactly how you can go through specific stretches. But remember, strengthening the opposing side is going to be really, really important. And so things like working on your grip strength is going to be important, working on specific pronation and supination, so where your hands go up and down. That's going to help strengthen some of those muscles in the forearm. And then again, you've got to think, if it is the flexors, you're going to go into bringing your fingers back and stretching those muscles, and then working on strengthening the extenders, which are on the other side, by going into wrist flexion. Wrist extension. And so you want to kind of think about, what you're working on and focus on different things. So if it's happening at the same time, I would split it up on different days or give them homework to work on, and see if they start to get some kind of relief. But it takes forever. The elbows, in my opinion, take forever because you use your arms for a lot of things.
Yeah, what I would add, because I've done enough of this, is if somebody has both, what are they doing for a living? Or what have they done in a fitness program prior to meeting with you? This is not a knock on anything, but are they a CrossFitter? Are they a rock climber? They must be doing something, unless they're both, maybe I worked in country clubs forever. Maybe they are those type of people who play golf and tennis. But for them to have both, I'm going to take a huge step back and say what caused both, because you may need just to eliminate that first.
Mm-hmm.
So, they might be some type of, someone who does a lot of manual labor, even if it's a hobby like woodcraft, something, fixing cars, because usually it's one or the other. So everything Wendy said, check out the 2 podcasts and try to dig in deeper on their lifestyle to see if there's something that you can temporarily remove to help that whole healing process.
And Marty, I am going to throw in too, if you have somebody that is having so much elbow pain, really think, Marty specified this too, specific exercises. I would lay off of things like pull-ups, because what happens, people really want to do pull-ups and they're putting that amount of body weight and strain to your hinge joint in your elbow. When you're doing pull-ups and you're just even hanging, it causes even more irritation. So you just want to be super careful on how much are you lifting, how much flexion extension are you doing, and how much body weight are you putting onto those joints that are already inflamed or causing some sort of discomfort.
Great points.
So Marty, before we move on to the next question, I just want to let everyone know that this episode of the Master Instructor Roundtable is brought to you by NASM One, the membership for trainers and coaches. Members enjoy unlimited access to hundreds of career resources. Get the Edge app to schedule and program clients, enjoy half off all certifications and specializations, access free CEUs, and more. All of this for just $35 a month. Go to nasm.org/membership to learn more about NASM One. Marty, question 5. Thoughts on vertical versus horizontal loading for hypertrophy split level workouts?
Yeah, this is interesting. I think there's always going to be more research coming out. And when we start with the phrase hypertrophy, let's just throw it out there that first, let's hope the person progressed to that phase, because they're going to get more out of it if they've done the corrective and stabilization training. So then when we look at vertical versus horizontal, let's just throw out what that is. So there's everybody here has the understanding. Vertical loading versus horizontal, just like what it sounds like. If I'm doing a vertical load, right, I might be going from one body part to another, where horizontal load, I might be going chest to chest to chest before I move on. So they both have their pros and cons. But if I was going to do a traditional hypertrophy phase training, back what I kind of started with in the 80s into the 90s, where you do a chest, a back, a shoulders, a leg, very segmental. I would do more of the horizontal. I would do a chest exercise, then a chest exercise, then a chest exercise. And I'm going to maximize the efficiency by minimizing my rest interval to no more than 45 seconds. Because what we have found in previous years of research is that hypertrophy, which is the change of the cellular growth that you're trying to elicit, is that you do not want full recovery in between sets. You want maximum fatigue. So 45 seconds is that window. If I start to go past 45 seconds, I'm going to get more recovery and I'm not going to get that same stimulus and cellular change. So you don't want full recovery so you can lift heavier. You want that moderate recovery so you can get the volume in and elicit the fatigue. So that's 45 seconds. Now, it humbles people when they do that horizontal workout, because a lot of people, mostly men who want the hypertrophy, they like to pick up as heavy a weight as possible. Now, with that being said, I've always said this, and I'll say it again. Your muscle does not know what your mind knows. Your muscle doesn't know if you have an 80-pound dumbbell or a 50-pound dumbbell. It knows fatigue. It knows that I've trained it to the capacity that I can't go further. So a lot of people will overrest to pick up a heavier weight and they don't maximize their benefits. Now, I'm not saying that if you don't do more of a traditional max strength phase, that you will not gain muscle mass. There are people who do. But we're looking at what's the science to show the best version of hypertrophy. So 2 caveats to this is, 1, nutrition and genetics have to be your best friend, right? If you're not sleeping well, if you're not getting the proper nutrition in and being at a calorie surplus, it's going to be harder. And then you have to pick the right genetics. Now, the caveat to this is there is some new research starting to come out, and I don't have enough to tell you yet other than just pay attention. There is some new research out coming that total body workouts may be a great way to add muscle hypertrophy as well. I can understand, because if you're doing deadlifts and squats and total body exercises, you're probably going to elicit a greater level of fatigue. You're probably going to activate your hormone responses. So I'm going to predict there's more to come on that you don't have to just go body part by body part. But, think about the exercise that people would pick if you're doing total body. You'd be doing pull-ups, which means you're getting your arms. You'd be doing lunges with presses. So I think that's going to be an interesting area of research for the next 3 to 5 years. But right now with the research we know, I would go a little more horizontal load than vertical load if you're looking to maximize hypertrophy. But yes, I'm allowed to change my mind as research comes out.
Well, and to your point, Marty, I mean, I think from what we know, if we're trying to get hypertrophy, we're being very muscle specific. And so we're working specifically on prime movers versus when we're doing horizontal, like we've done in, let's say, phase 1 or phase 2, we can do more muscle groups. We are doing more functional movement patterns. We are doing more total body exercises and things like that. So I think it's one of those things, to your point. I think having, like, if I'm trying to get size on a specific muscle, and I know we can't target anything, but if I can target a prime mover, that's going to be one thing. Like, what is the purpose of it? Because sometimes too, if we vertical load, then we start to increase our heart rate. So if someone is trying to get bigger, then burning more calories throughout that workout, besides focusing on the exercise at hand, isn't necessarily what we're trying to elicit either. So am I trying to get big or am I trying to get lean? There's a difference between that as well. So I am going to throw that out there. Yep. And guys, I wanted to say that we are live today. So Marty Miller and Wendy Batts, are live here on the Master Instructor Roundtable. So if you have questions, we're getting ready to wrap up soon. We want to make sure that we get your questions answered. If you have any, if you want to just throw out a shout out, let us know that you're listening. That's great too. But we want to make sure too that we remind you of that, because today we are talking about questions from the group that we found on the Facebook page that came directly from you guys. So we do appreciate all the comments and questions that you guys bring to us. And
Wendy, one last thought on question 5, just because 2 things popped in my head and it'll be real quick, is there is more and more research out there that you need to lift heavy stuff to prevent sarcopenia. So remember, the model is kind of designed. Do not stay in a hypertrophy phase past 4 to 6 weeks and think you're going to get better benefits by staying there longer. Pick up some heavy stuff, but also your body does well by varying the stimulus. So even though what I just said is horizontal may give you an advantage, if you've always done it that way, try a vertical, go to max strength, and you might all of a sudden, if the nutrition and rest and everything is there, you might see advantages or changes you haven't seen before, because you finally change the stimulus within your body. So. Good point. All right, Marty, I'm going to read you question 6. I love this question. I read it like a few times when you put it in there, and I was like, oh, this ought to be interesting, because I wonder if you and I have the same thought process here. But question about pricing. And yeah, here we go. How much do you charge for a private event? For example, if a company is inviting me to teach for an event, is there a percentage I share with them? I work at a studio where it's $30 per person per group class typically. I'm located in Orange County, California. This is one that we could talk for hours about, because there's a lot of depends, right, and nuances to it. So basically right now, I don't do one-on-one training. I'm a chief movement officer for a company. I'm way too busy. I do my things for NASM. So let's just hypothetically say that as I'm going through my neighborhood, somebody asked me and it wasn't something I was going to do for free. The number would have to be pretty high, because I don't have a lot of time in my schedule, right? So it comes down to supply and demand at some point. If you're newer in your industry, and in your career, right, there's going to be a level of, first of all, I'll take us back. I think a lot of young personal trainers make a mistake of thinking what the charge is versus what their time is worth and what they're willing to work for, especially if they're working for a business. So if you think about the national average, if you're making $30 an hour, that's over $65,000 a year, roughly, if you were full time. I know that that's hard to do for personal training, But if you look at the education requirements it takes to find other jobs that make $30 an hour, right? If you could come in right away and make $30 an hour, and a business is providing you the four walls, hundreds of thousands of dollars equipment, a big marketing budget to bring people in, you have to start with what is fair for me to make, not what the company's charging and making off of me. Now, as you grow your business and as you get more experience and continue to add credentials on your name, yes, you should start to make more. And if you want to venture out on your own and take some of those risks yourself, there should be more of a reward for that. So, me at my point in life right now, I don't think anyone could get me to budge for under $200 an hour because I don't need it. I'm in a different position. But you can't always just pick a number arbitrarily and say, I'm going to charge this. You got to look at your area. You got to look at what your costs are to live, right? Because living in California is going to cost you a lot more than living in, the middle of the country. So you have to figure out, can I survive on this? Can I earn enough to dig in and build this career up? So that's kind of like the groundwork. So do a little analysis of the area around you. Think of what your value is for your resume and your experience and what you're willing to exchange time for dollars for that. So that's for me with one-on-one. Now, the one thing I could tell you, I never gave a discount on my one-on-one trainings, right? So people would be like, do you sell packages? And my answer is no. And they're like, well, why? I'm like, my doctor doesn't discount their time. A lawyer doesn't discount their time. I'm a professional. I'm $100 an hour, and I'm always going to be $100 an hour. Now, not everyone agrees with that philosophy, but that's the philosophy I stuck with, and it worked very well for me. So I didn't have to discount. Again, this could be a longer conversation. And then training for a private event, how much prep work do I need to do? Am I rolling right in, little prep work and going right to it? I might keep it around my hourly rate, but I'd add time for inconvenience if it's my off hours. I'd maybe add some time for travel. But if I have to prep for 2-3 hours, I'm going to maybe I'll give them a little discount on that. But if my $100 an hour is by $100 an hour, it doesn't really matter what I'm doing. So that's kind of where that's at. And then the last part we're going to see where it's $30 per person per group. Depends on how much am I bringing those people in, or how much I'm just a face that shows up because the business spent the time and money to bring those people in. And yes, do I think I should make more, at least somewhat proportionally, if I'm training 10 to 20 people versus one? Of course. And I would just put that on a sliding scale. So I know I didn't give 100% specific answers, but that's kind of a mindset that I have when I look at these.
Well, I'm gonna piggyback off of that, and I'm gonna tell you this: if you're a new trainer, obviously you're probably not going to be as expensive as someone like Marty and myself who've been in the industry for 20 plus years that have a lot of things behind our names. However, what I do suggest you do if you're new and you want to know, are you charging enough? You've got to do some research. You want to go to the big box gyms and look at what are personal trainers charging for their sessions. And are they an hour session? Are they one-on-one? So I'm talking about a one-on-one. This is what I usually tell people to do, is do some research. Then go to some of the boutique type gyms, call to say that you're interested in understanding their pricing and how they package their stuff. It's okay. You don't have to say that you're a trainer and you want to know. You just say you're just curious about how much a session would be in case you ever do want to go into that place. So, ask around. And then I tell everyone, don't be the cheapest and don't be the most expensive if you're new. Kind of find the middle ground for your area. Because if you're in, New York and you're charging $30 an hour, you're very extremely underpaid, even if it is a group, because it's very expensive. Same thing in California. It's very expensive to live. Now, if you come to Georgia or you go to Mississippi or something where maybe the income of the surrounding area isn't as high, then maybe you're right on target for that. So one-on-one, find what's around your area. But even if you read the textbook, one of the first thing it says, how much do you need to make a year? And then at that point, you need to go backwards. Well, okay, how many sessions is that a month? How many sessions is that a week? And how many sessions does that mean I have to have a day? And then you work your tail off to make sure that you're hitting those numbers. So at the end of the year, you met your goal. So you're the one that needs to determine that. But you also want to make sure that it's realistic. So that's my take on the one-on-one. Now, how much do I charge for a private event, to Marty's point, my questions are, well, what am I teaching? So what am I charged for a private event to do what? So if a company is inviting me to teach for an event, am I teaching content? Am I teaching the entire OPT model? Am I just teaching someone how to foam roll? Is it 1 hour? Is it 5 hours? And then I say, you know what? This is how much it's going to be. Give them one number, because there's no percentage share at that point, because they're the ones bringing them in. You are going to be the talent of whatever it is that this event is about. And whoever's hiring you should just pay you a rate. And that makes it easy. You get the check at the end of the day and you're done. And then again, like if you're getting $30 per person per group, I think that's fantastic if you've got multiple people, because again, if you can have multiple people and you're making $30 per person and you have, 15, 20 people in there, that's a pretty good payday or pay hour, if you will. So that's my comments.
Great. Wendy, we have a question. Would you like to read it and we'll
Sure.
both answer?
Okay. So if both of you rock it. Oh, thank you. And I'm glad that you're going to be listening to us on Thursday at lunch. Okay. The question is how do you train? What is the recommendation when working out arms, such as bicep curls? There is discomfort and pain at the insertion point that I'm thinking that he's having. So lighter weights and increased reps. Any thoughts?
Yeah. So it really depends. If it's me in my own workout versus am I training somebody? Remember, scope of practice. As a personal trainer, we're not here to treat injuries. So that's where, again, with an upcoming podcast that we may be having called Red Flags, we will get into this a little bit more.
But he did say discomfort. So
right. So that's why I'm asking. That's why I'm asking. But some people say it's discomfort, but it's pain. So that, right, like that's the gray area. So one, you know what I mean? Going lighter and increasing reps is going to increase more blood flow and keep strain off the muscle. But if this is persistent, if this isn't a one-off per se, and other exercises like a row, or pulls, because remember, a pull is just a bicep curl anyways, just a different position. I would start to say, hey, this might be something that I might need to refer out. But of course, if it's getting better, then obviously decreasing the load, decreasing the intensity, and then working it back. But I would go back to your movement assessment, even for something like the elbow, because you might see their arms fall forward. They may have elbows flexed. And then you can also put in some soft tissue work and some correctives that could help that as well.
100%. Foam roll, down regulate, stretch, strengthen.
There it is. That's simple.
All right, Marty, some of the key takeaways, obviously, if you guys are not part of the NASM CPT Facebook page, just if you have your CPT, just go in, say you want to join the group. They will make sure that you're valid, and then you can be a part of the conversation that we're having behind the scenes, if you will. Are you following the NASM Instagram channel? Those of you guys, especially that are new, NASM puts out content, videos, a lot of information all the time, especially on Instagram, that's helping you with different exercise selection. I know that they're doing different things right now for different individuals, maybe if they're runners or they're swimmers or they're surfers or whatever. They're coming up with a lot of really cool content and videos to help you too, in case you are not sure how to program some of those things. So it is a really good channel to be a part of. Are you using all your resources? I hope so. But remember, Marty and I are also your resources. So if there's a topic or something that you want us to talk about at the end of the show, we will make sure that we provide you with our contact information and let us know. And we will do our best to get that on a podcast where we can go into detail about whatever it is that you're asking about. Always stick to the OPT model. When in doubt, this gives you the blueprint. It tells you exactly how to do it. It tells you how to program something. So if you are scared about program design and you're not sure what to do an assessment. If there's a compensation, start at phase 1. And it tells you, use these type of exercises for these particular muscles. And here's the reps, here's the sets, here's the rest. And then just follow that. Just follow it. And I'm telling you, you're going to start to see these individuals make the changes that you're hoping for, but you also know that you're doing them right by making sure it's also something that has been evidence-based. There's research behind it. It's not just something like, here's the workout of the day because we just saw it on Instagram and thought it was cool to do. No offense. Hopefully none taken. But the biggest thing too is always ask questions. Let us know how we can help you. We want to be obviously your virtual mentors from a distance right now if we can, but we also want to just ensure too that, if you're not sure, go onto that Facebook question, start asking questions, and you're going to be amazed at how many great, wonderful people are part of the NASM family that want to help you as well. So if we're not available, there's somebody else that will chime in, and you're going to get a lot of people that chime in, and then you're going to have to make the best decision on who you want to listen to.
Love it. Great advice, Wendy.
As always, if you want to email me, you can find me at wendy.batts@nasm.org, or you can find me on Instagram at wendy.batts13.
And my info is right here, dr.martymiller72 for Instagram, and then marty.miller@nasm.org for my email. So Wendy, thank you for all your insight. I love these because we never know which way either of us are going to answer a question. There's obviously some common threads, but I appreciate all the great information you put out. And for those of you that joined us live, awesome. Thank you. Thank you for the questions and the positive feedback. We're here for you. So don't hesitate to reach out and let us know what type of content you want us to put out. We got some cool things coming. Summer, can you believe that? We got to mention that is on its way. But thank you for joining us today. And of course, we look forward to seeing you on next week's edition of the Master Instructor Roundtable.